in half the shots, my foot is like curled like a moron, and I'm sitting like this the whole time, and my foot just, I'm like, what was I doing with my foot the whole time? What's the matter with me?
Did I tell you about my apple pie?
No.
I didn't tell you the story?
I don't think so.
So, Fran bought me a apple crumb pie. And
A real one.
Okay. And wanted to give it to me, which sounds delicious.
Yeah.
By the way, but she also bought a pecan pie, and she called me to see if she could drop it off, and Ray Ann claimed the apple pie, and I got stuck with the pecan pie.
Yeah, that's disappointing.
So I gave Ray Ann a hard time about it, and so she brought me an apple pie.
Oh, okay.
To make up for it. Isn't that nice? Do you want apple pie?
I'm okay, thank you. I thought it was just one of your students or something.
That's awesome, huh? Yeah, we'll get her back. So, dude, we went to this pastor's conference on Tuesday.
The fuel up.
Refuel.
That's
Refuel
it. Fuel
Monday.
up. Refuel.
Yeah. So tell me, what'd you like from it? What'd you take away from it?
First off, I was encouraged by how many people were there.
Yeah. What do you think?
I would say about 100.
Yeah.
There may have been more, may have been less. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
bad at gauging and estimating numbers.
Yeah,
but I'd say about
probably
100. But either way, a lot of different churches represented. It seemed like the engagement was good.
Yeah.
Big sessions were great. Jonathan Falwell, brought it home.
He did
man.
good, right?
I was super encouraged about that. But the breakout sessions definitely, I mean, I attended one for youth ministry, obviously. That was a big help in terms of encouragement.
Sure.
But also plans down the road that I can't necessarily implement quite yet, but I can lay the foundation to maybe get there one day in terms of just engaging and reaching students better, especially in the culture that we're in, and not assuming things about them. That was a big thing that kept coming up. Don't assume that you know what they're thinking about what it is that you're teaching.
What are some of the things you think we assume about the youth culture today that maybe aren't accurate?
That they aren't interested in anything biblical or anything godly.
Right.
I think faith, we just assume their faith is weak for the most part.
Yeah.
And I'm giving answers because I have kind of the cheat sheets of what's in my mind from what I saw. And I mean, these were surveys that were done by multiple people over a long period of time. So those two were big, but then also just the engagement, that they'd prefer to just text or snap. They're not really looking for any face-to-face engagement, and that's not the case. They might not know how to do it the best, and I'm seeing that in some of them, but they want it, and I think they value it more than we give them credit for. I think they're hungrier than we give them credit for.
Yeah, it always bothers me when people are like, youth don't know how to talk to people today. Youth never knew how to talk to people.
I didn't.
That's part of growing up. That's part, and maybe we're stunting the maturation of that through social media or tech or whatever we're blaming it on. I don't know, but I don't know. Like I didn't know how to talk to adults when I was growing up.
There's still some people I don't know how to engage with.
Right.
It's just awkward.
And that's the other thing.
And you're
plenty of it. There's always going to be a certain percentage of people that just aren't good communicators. Right?
Well, and especially in those early stages. I mean, I've gotten to a point now where I have a pretty good rapport. But when a new person comes in, who's 14 and doesn't know me from Joe Schmo down the street, I mean, how are you supposed to engage with an adult?
You're right. And then put pimples on your face, and it's exponentially harder.
Yeah. I will say though, the other thing, just from my breakout, and then we can talk about some of the one that we attended, or you can go. He started the class not really intending to do this, but he wanted to encourage everybody that was there, because there's kind of this idea out there that youth ministry is failing, that kids who graduate high school who attend a youth group are leaving the church in droves, and that's an accepted thing. There's people who have written books about the idea that youth ministry is just a waste of time and we don't need to do that anymore. While I think that there's some evidence that suggests that we could do it better, he knocked it out of the park and brought data to show that in the last decade, I think it was, that is completely false.
Sure.
That if anything, it's the complete opposite, that these kids as adults who attended youth, even as every other weekers or once a month, they were connected to something, their retention in being connected to the church is significantly, like, really, really high
That's
percentage-wise into adulthood.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so his whole point was like, what you do matters.
Right.
You know, and I remember an old pastor of mine, whenever I was younger, he used to always say, you know, everybody likes to say, you know, we need to raise up the next generation because they're the church of tomorrow. And he always hated that. He would always say, you know, they're the church of today.
Right.
And so, yeah, I was just encouraged by it. I think it was good. There were some things I took away.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You know what? And I think I said this to you the other day. Something that really encouraged me was pastor conferences have changed over the last few years. Used to go to stuff like that, and it would be like, you know, all about how to start like a Wednesday night program that's going to bring more people in or whatever, or like it just seemed very program driven in the past. Whereas this one and so many other things that I'm seeing are just hardcore, like focused on discipleship.
Yeah.
How to make disciples.
Yeah.
You know, the programs and the techniques and stuff like that might vary, but I'm so encouraged by how much attention I see that getting through conferences like that.
Yeah, it's almost like they're just giving you tools to put in your belt, but they're not giving you like a building plan.
Yeah,
they're like, now you have all the tools, you can go
you can
implement
figure it
that
out.
however you want.
Yep, because it's different in every context, right?
Yeah, so it was good. I appreciate it. What about I didn't go to the same breakout.
Yeah, dude, so the first breakout I went to was this dude from Georgia, first of all, which was great.
Yeah, sure. You felt right at home.
Yeah, he came up and said hi to me, and I said, "You're not from Pittsburgh," and because he had a pretty thick Southern accent, but really cool dude. His breakout was on how to unleash disciple makers into your city, and so in their context. Down in Rome, Georgia, which I actually hope to go visit because it's not too far from where my granny's at. They have networked in their county. They have several churches that have come together to work together to send out disciple makers into their cities. That's cool. And so, it seemed like they had a pretty cool thing going. Pretty similar, some similarities, I should say, to what we're trying to do with Steel City. And so that was really encouraging. And it was weird. It was a small group in the breakout. There was maybe like 8 people or something. And I don't know if it wasn't what people thought it was going to be or something when they signed up for it, but everybody was pretty unengaged. And it wasn't him because I thought he was a pretty compelling speaker. But like at the end, he opened it up for Q&A. I was the only one asking questions. Like I was that guy, you know. It was like I was like, I got 10 more questions.
Everybody
I can do this.
Isn't Chick-Fil-A ready? Like,
so when nobody else was asking questions, I just stopped and I was like, all right, I'll just go talk to this dude. So so it's cool. We exchanged numbers and have exchanged some text since. I told him I hope to come visit him down there in Rome sometime. But yeah, his dude was a solid dude.
Cool. Yeah, I kind of echo what you said earlier. I appreciated the fact that it was more discipleship based. You know, go make disciples. That's like that's our commission as the church. So it was nice to go there, not saying like, hey, these 3 mega churches do these programs, and if your church isn't doing them, then you're not doing it right. They might be doing it right, but you might be able to accomplish the same thing in a different context in a different way.
Exactly.
The point is it's not, there's no one size fits all. So I did appreciate that. And it kind of, I guess an easy segue, the second breakout was something that was not necessarily new, but it was different. You know, you go to, I forget what the title of the breakout session was, but essentially like how to make disciples.
Hammer and chisel.
Hammer and chisel. And so...
let me explain that.
I was going to say, go ahead.
Yeah, so like the hammer and chisel was, in he's speaking to a group of pastors and church leaders, right? And he's saying how often when it comes to making disciples, you have a lot of people that maybe come to your church, but you don't get to, invest personally in everybody. And so you kind of look for, okay, God, like who are you working in? Who should I pour into, that type of thing. And he said, he used the example of Paul and Timothy. Mm-hmm. Timothy being this young, kind of moldable, ready to be poured into. He has the right spirit, but doesn't have the skills to be a leader yet. And so, like, pouring into a Timothy is fairly easy. And so we normally look for Timothys, right? And he said that's kind of like, taking a little bit of sandpaper or rounding off some rough edges. It's easy work in terms of discipleship, relatively speaking. But he said he was encouraging us and challenging us to look for the Sauls, became Apostle Paul, obviously. Look for the Sauls who, big personality, strong leadership gifting, had the skills but didn't have the right spirit. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he was out persecuting the church and not following Christ. That's a much bigger task. He said that's like taking, and he used the example, I think it was Michelangelo.
I was going to say, when he was like, I don't remember which artist it was.
Right.
I was in my mind.
It's Michelangelo, right?
Sure.
Okay. I think it's Michelangelo who was quoted one time, like, how do you create these sculptures? And he said something akin to, like, you got this big piece of rock or whatever, and there's a sculpture in there. I'm just letting it out. Mm-hmm. And so the hammer and chisel was, okay, you're making a sculpture. Sometimes discipleship isn't just rounding off some smooth edges. It's knocking away the big chunks.
Right.
And those are like the big challenges, and people like Saul had some big chunks that needed knocked away. He was killing Christians.
Right.
Let's
start there.
He was extremely legalistic and all of those things. So,
well, and what's incredible about that is, and this was like a side note, this wasn't even a part of his lesson necessarily. He just kind of said, and I've done a personal study through the New Testament, and we talked about it afterwards. We don't know if this was chronological or not in terms of like time, but, well,
I'm going to look it up though.
Chronological and time. I don't know if you know that, but they're synonymous. This idea of watching that progression happen in Paul, where, he's the least of the apostles. And then
he says that in one of his letters.
Yes, and then he's the least of the saints. And then he's the chief of sinners. Like, you see apostles, saints, sinners. Like, Paul, who was very much up here in terms of, like, having it all, so to speak, in terms of his skill set, right? But then when you kind of get the right spirit, you see him not belittling himself for sake of, like, lower self-esteem, but just recognizing the fact that, like, less of me and more of Christ kind of thing. Yeah. And so you see that happen, and that's like that's how I'm picturing him chiseling these pieces off, which is kind of cool. So,
what was awkward was we ate lunch during that breakout.
All you heard was people chewing.
No, I've never been to a conference where you just take your food to your session and eat it there.
I wonder if that was planned or if that was for sake of time. Either way,
I think it was for sake of time. Yeah. But then of course we had Chick-Fil-A, which do you like Chick-Fil-A?
Praise the Lord. Yes.
You do like Chick-Fil-A? It's okay.
Okay. We'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
You're upsetting me.
This is the problem. That's the problem. You can't talk smack on Chick-fil-A around Christians because
because it's the Lord's chicken.
But here's the thing.
No.
Like, so.
Listen, Popeyes is almost as good, I will say.
I've never had Popeyes.
It just doesn't have the blessing of the Lord on it.
Cane's is coming. Raising Cane's is coming to Pittsburgh, which is a good thing.
My brother would back you up on that.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But Chick-fil-A, founded by Truett Cathy, total awesome brother in the Lord, who did incredible things. Right, solid Christian dude. But he's gone now, right? And at least I think he's passed. Now I'm second guessing that. I might be breaking news that's fake. But the company at least has passed on to the next generation, and they are not staying faithful to, let's say, to the gospel.
Sure.
The way the first generation of Chick-fil-A did.
And you think their chicken is suffering because of it?
I think that, when the Lord blesses chicken, I think that's eternal. I don't think their chicken is going to suffer. It's kind of like, the nation of Israel. His blessings are irrevocable.
All I'm saying is this is coming from a guy who eats Long John Silver still.
No, that's good stuff. That is good stuff.
Talking about, blessing and curses. That is nothing but a curse.
Anyhow, that was good.
I have one last question, just thinking about all this. What's something tangible that, like, kind of right in the here and now that you think, like, I want to just get on that right now?
Yeah.
Other than go and make disciples.
Well, that is the thing, though. That is the thing for me, though. Well, tangible, for me personally, there were some tangible things. So this was put on by the Liberty Church Network, who is out of Liberty University, and I'm getting ready to start taking some classes through Liberty. So me personally, I was there seeking to build some relationships.
Yeah.
And I built, like, the guy that did the hammer and chisel talk. he is the head of church planning at Liberty University.
Right.
And we exchanged some emails since we came back from that, and hope to go down there and grab lunch with him sometime in the near future. So so there was some great, for me, I'm always looking for those contacts, those relationships, who are some men or women who are like-minded in terms of gospel ministry that we can connect to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of personal. But I'm really just excited about what we're getting ready to do in terms of discipleship efforts, because we want to be a disciple making church, and we want to be a church that makes disciples who make disciples. That requires a lot of intentionality. If you're not intentional about it, let's say, and you just do what normal churches do, you'll have some people that mature in discipleship, and you'll have even a smaller group of people who will just naturally pick it up and make disciples, right? But I think you can see a lot better fruit in people's lives by some just plain old intentionality. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're doing with the Disciples Path series. Good. So I'm really excited for that, man. Yeah, be good stuff.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, honestly, went back to Falwell's sermon, and it's so practical, and it's something, though, that I think I need to hear on a regular basis, which is just preach the gospel unapologetically. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Stop worrying about all the bells and whistles, although it's nice to have nice things, and it's nice to want to please people and make people feel welcome and all of that, and I'm not knocking it, but, none of that can trump preaching the gospel. That's got to be first and foremost, and you do that unapologetically, and God will build his church. And I was like, let's go. That's what I want to do.
Super encouraging. And just seeing Jonathan Falwell, because his family's going through such crap right now. Literally, the day before we went, I saw on a big international news site another headline story about Jerry Falwell Jr.'s mess that he created there for Liberty to clean up. And so it was just kind of neat to see him knowing their families. I mean, Hulu's releasing a documentary about all the crap that Jerry Falwell Jr. did, which is Jonathan's brother. So man, that sucks. They're doing gospel work, but there's just all of this distraction and negative stuff.
What a good reminder to him, to himself. What am I supposed to, I'm not gonna ignore all of that. It needs to be addressed, but I have a duty here as a pastor and a preacher to just preach the gospel.
And I think we all should be prepared for that at some level. That's normal throughout the church, you just look at the book of Acts. It's not like they were welcomed where they were at. There was people accusing them of all kinds of crazy things. Mm-hmm. Some of it just really off the wall stuff and everything. And there were people who were being persecuted and killed and everything. That's nothing new. But we need to stay focused on doing gospel ministry.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you're Pastor Marty now.
It's me.
How's that feel?
Man, I still feel like Marty. I will say, there is, when it comes up, I guess, when we registered for that conference, is there a title? Although they didn't have my name tag printed along with 50 other people, which made me laugh. I was looking for people who had to handwrite there. I was like, me and you, yeah. But
I'll tell you, I think it was my first breakout speaker. I saw one of the speakers had a handwritten.
I was like, okay, it wasn't just me who registered late. No, it's a title. Whatever. Just like there's isms and all that. There is a weight that comes with it, though. You feel that responsibility. We're reading in 2 Timothy when Falwell's preaching about just the importance of what it is that we're called to do. Yeah. And to, I feel that. You know what I mean? And I felt that before, obviously, anytime I was preparing for a sermon or, getting ready to teach the youth. But it's just, I don't know, it is different in a way. But it's exciting. It's an exciting thing.
I'm proud of you, man. I think it's good stuff.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to everything. There's some good stuff coming for redemption. So
and it was a lot of fun going through the ordination process with you, and
let's do that again with someone else soon.
And even and we have plans for continuing to do some things too, some studies that we're going to do together and stuff too. So it's just cool to have you here and have a brother that I get to go just dig into that stuff with. So
it's good stuff.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for taking some time to hang out and talk.
No problem.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, I'm going to go have some apple pie.
All right. Enjoy it. I'm going to have some pecan pie.
All right, sounds good.